Hey, what is up, guys? Evan Aldo here. Welcome to the video. I am in New Canaan, Connecticut, enjoying the beautiful, the great New England summer. There is nothing quite like it. There really is nothing quite like it. I used to run cross country in high school. Really showed, some of the talent. If you guys aren't familiar, Fairfield County, Connecticut, New Canaan, some of these cities, incredible places. A lot of really, really smart people. A lot of really hardworking people. And it was really an experience, doing that when I was in high school. A lot of, kind of motivation. A lot of that, seeing where, seeing kind of as far as I've gone. Sometimes I go back to these places and, you kind of wonder, a lot of different realities, a lot of different paths we choose. There's a lot of choices, what college you go to, what job you take up, there's so many different pathways that we can potentially go down. There's so many different, potential outcomes. Now, there's certain people that say, in the quantum field, there's unlimited, amount of outcomes in a different dimension. One dimension would be you being a multimillionaire. Another dimension, maybe you being just an average income. Another dimension, below average. Who knows? You name it. Infinite kind of things of that nature. I am definitely not in the cardio shape that I used to be. Still probably above average cardio shape. It is kind of hot out, but when you're walking up hills and such, still not in that type of shape. But it's kind of cool because you see like under some of the trees, the shade here, people just sit there, and it's definitely on a different frequency. I think, the easiest thing, if you study law of attraction, one of the biggest things they always tell you is you got to get on that frequency for the thing you want, whether it be wealth, whether it be health, you got to kind of get on that frequency. And when you hear that, I think when most people hear that, and even including myself to this day, when I hear that and think about that, I'm sometimes thinking, what does that mean? That's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of pseudoscience. It's kind of woo-woo. Like, what does that mean? But I feel like the easiest way, or at least one of the easiest ways to tell, is like if you come out to like a nature trail or something, or a park like this or something of that nature, it's different. It feels different. Like you're on a different frequency. Whether you're in the city, the suburbs, and there's certain places, I mean, you don't have to travel necessarily, leave the place you're in, at least go that far to experience it. But there's definitely a lot that can be like different parts of your mind, different parts of your brain can be activated, like different creativity and such. I mean, a lot of people say, like older, wealthier people that are, clips that show clips of them on social media or whatever, YouTube or whatever, they would say like go outside more, the younger generations like Gen Z or whatever. I think I'm Gen Z. I was born after 95. And, go outside more, all that. I think they're right. I think they're generally kind of right. And I think that, you look at too, a lot of people, and people in general, as they get older, kind of your posture gets worse. But I feel like, the younger generations were always like looking down on their phones, trading, you're busting your neck and all that. Like, the previous generations before, at least before my generation, probably before the millennial generation, they were outside more, when they were kids running around and that type of thing. And you look at kind of the really old, like the World War II generation, people in their 80s and 90s right now, that generation, they were, you look at like kind of lifestyles they lived. I don't think, they ate more like natural foods when they were younger. Maybe they were subjected to less environmental, carcinogens, maybe not, but, they were tough. They were tough to a certain extent. I mean, that's why you see a lot of people. I mean, this is just, I could be completely wrong, but you see a lot of people, their 60s, their 70s, they're dropping dead of heart attacks. But then the generation after them, they're 90 years old and they're eating whatever they want. They're just chilling and they're pretty much fine. You see stuff like that. And that's, I mean, obviously that was, I think, I don't know where I'm going with this or why this is even that relevant, but you think that generation, that World War II generation, they grew up without antibiotics, grew up, you fought a war, all of this. I mean, we're getting to the point where most, if not all of them, are pretty much getting to the end now, sadly, but that's just, as the Buddhists or the Eastern philosophies would say, death is like changing a pair of dirty clothes, throwing away a old shirt that you don't need anymore. Sometimes you get attached to clothes, to attach to anything that has memory, such as like this park for me, or even like when I ran track in high school, even like some shirts, just like t-shirts, like an Under Armour or Nike t-shirt I used to wear. Some of them, they're kind of worn out now, but some of them I still keep and wear occasionally because it was just, and I still fit in. Yeah, some people, unfortunately gained a lot of weight since they were in high school or college. That's what I've seen a lot. And that's obesity just keeps increasing in America, or really probably throughout the world. I could be wrong on that though, but it was just kind of a sad reality. But I still fit into, everything. And it's just interesting, kind of interesting to, think about these things. And I mean, every year kind of goes by, every year goes by a little bit faster than the previous one, because as you get older, there's more perspective. Like when you're 10 years old, 1 year is a tenth of your life, or 1 year is a tenth of your life. But when you're 27 years old, it's half that. It goes by, it goes by quick, which is, I think it's a good and a bad thing to a certain extent. I mean, it depends. It really depends. I mean, people talk about flow state where, and I think there's at least some truth in this. When you're in flow state, you don't really age. When you're in flow state, you don't really age. When you're really doing the things you want to be doing, you don't really age. You're just focused. And I think there's truth in that, Obviously, conventional science would be, completely against it. But nowadays, science, they kind of just, they take the voices of science that, a lot of scientists have different views. A lot of the studies show different things. There's a lot that we don't know, but they, them big money and all that, they take the views that they want to take and they just propagate them in the, in the media or whatever. And I'm not saying they're wrong, but it's kind of, that type of stuff has always happened. I think overall it's kind of better, with the internet. And I think, there's been a lot of great lengths gone to kind of prevent all the censorship and all that nonsense. Or maybe it's good. I mean, I think, look, I mean, I think as we kind of go through time, and we have, we talk about, we've seen through the past, when did short form content come out, like TikTok? Since 2019, about 5 years. I was watching Tech Lead, one of his previous videos. He was under some scrutiny. He turned off all comments on his videos. I don't even know what that's about. I don't even care. But, he was saying we kind of reach peak technology in some ways with sort of short form, kind of digital dopamine. And I think as that kind of, I don't think there's ever a peak technology, but I think as that kind of, keeps progressing, there's going to be more of I don't want to say a need for more regulation, but you may see, the next world superpower. You may see things happen in a way where it is more regulation in that sense. I hope I didn't irritate you guys for saying that. I'm just saying what may happen. I don't know if this is like, going into like philosophy, it's really good stuff that I'm talking about, like slightly future negative. I don't know. Kind of the train of thought, just moves around. But I think, the important thing I've been thinking about is, I read the book some months ago, or a year ago now. It's like, time goes by. The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles. Yeah, I think it's Wallace D. Wattles. And he kept repeating a lot of times in that book, do as much as you can. I don't know if it was this exact words, but do all that you can each day. Do as much as you can each day is basically what he was saying. And I think the most important part to realize there is you need to take action. You need to really take action. I think that's an important thing. Just take action. And sometimes I thought, you're deciding between so many different things to do. Should I go down this path? Should I go down that path? I mean, and the more success you have and the more money you have, the more kind of freedom to potentially take different paths. That's what kind of tends to happen. The more freedom you have to take these potential different paths. So that's kind of, sometimes you get stuck in analysis kind of paralysis there as you get, that more success. When you're a kid, you don't have usually your parents to say, what city you live in, what school you go to, all those type of things. I mean, maybe you get some choice in what college you go to, but even that a lot of times could be highly, highly influenced by who your parents are. I mean, they could just say, oh, I'm not paying for that one, I'm paying for this one. I mean, there's gonna be that influence. But as you become adult and as you gain more wealth, you have more of those choices. But I think that a lot of people kind of get paralyzed. They're thinking in the past too much. I think you got to be kind of excited for a future ahead of you. I mean, I was watching the documentary about Arnold Schwarzenegger called Arnold that came out, I think, pretty recently on Netflix. And you look at, even it wasn't that big of a thing, but I mean, a lot of people know he had an affair against his wife, and he had a kid with his maid, I think, when he was governor of California. And he was talking about how big of a failure that was. I mean, no matter how big you get, and then you look at that documentary and all those, they interviewed a lot of those bodybuilders from 1970s, 1980s were in it. And you look at how old they are now, they're in their 70s now. And you wouldn't have known any of them were even bodybuilders. Time, that's the kind of, maybe the sad part to a certain extent, but time is that thing that gets everybody. That time, I guess time is kind of your most valuable asset to a certain extent, because you look at all those guys, they're in their 70s. You would have never known they were bodybuilders when they were younger. They just look like, average guys in their 70s. You compare somebody who's in really good shape to the average person, or somebody who's overweight, who's in their 20s, their 30s, their 40s, even their 50s, even their 60s. I mean, to a certain extent, depending. And there's a big difference. But once you get to those, kind of older ages, time is kind of what gets you to a certain extent. So that's why I think, it is important to have that sense of urgency. Now, at the same time, that doesn't mean you can't start things when you're older. You can accomplish whatever you want. And even if you can, it's important to believe that you can, because that'll motivate you to at least kind of try something. You look at the internet, you look at AI, it seems like, we're completely outmatched. That's what I used to think. I'm completely outmatched. How can I compete with, you got an internet, all this, you got the best people, working in the world. How can you compete against that? Believe it or not, you can, because we all have a certain creativity. We all have a certain uniqueness that you can find, that you can use to your advantage, I think, that you can use to, make your mark and to, accomplish the things that you really want to accomplish. If you do think in the past, I think I've thought way too much in the past, and you think, a lot of us, maybe you find yourself thinking about things from, let's say, your childhood, things from 20 years ago, 10 years ago, why didn't I do this differently? I should have done that. It's in the past. You can't change that. If you're going to think about the things from the past, you got to focus on the things, that were good. You got to focus on the things that were kind of positive. And, they say feeling is the secret. And I think that it's easier said than done sometimes, but it's not that hard. Easier said than done, but I don't think it's that challenging for anyone to really feel like they already have what they want. What is it that you want? Set that kind of number, set that goal. And you don't have to know how you're going to accomplish it. Obviously, if it's something that, I think money is one of the easier things. This is going to sound wild, but I think money is kind of one of the easier things to really accomplish, because there's just so many different ways to make money, and there always have been a lot of different ways to make money. Some things, there's a lot of, and there were things I talked about with people who were already very successful, ways of, business ideas or whatever, and they were completely, against it, and how could that work? And then, some of those ideas were already things that people had done before, and they just didn't even know about it. So it's an ever-changing world, it's an ever-changing world. That's why, you got to be able to adapt. And I think that's when people kind of stop living, when they're done, is when they can't adapt, when they're not open-minded to new things anymore. I think that I think that it goes towards, you know, what keeps you young. Try new things, take action. You may not know what you want to do. You may have no idea what things you want to, you know, try to accomplish. Just try something. And if you're idling, if you're overthinking things, just something is better than nothing. I remember saying that to myself like maybe 5-6 years ago. You know, something is better than nothing. I think it helped me accomplish at least a couple things. I think taking that action combined with kind of having positive thoughts, mainly focusing on positive thoughts, feeling like I already had the things that I generally wanted. I already had the things, you know, that I wanted, and kind of act, not being arrogant, but, you know, kind of acting like you're already successful. Acting like that. You know, people have different goals too. You know, the people, they say, you know, you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. I think that's true, at least to a certain extent. The positive part of that is, you know, if you surround yourself with a lot of, you know, positive stuff on YouTube, people you resonate, you know, with through the internet or whatever, that can be a substitute as to actually going out and meeting the people at your level. However, you also want to do that and actually physically be around people that are where you want to be, hopefully. I mean, obviously it may be hard to, you know, if you want to be a billionaire, it may be hard to hang out with billionaires right away, things of that nature, but you can definitely move up the ladder, if you get what I'm saying. And I mean, there's stranger things have happened. If somebody, you know, likes what you're doing, if they think you're doing a good job at something, they will usually talk to you. Usually, maybe not always, but a lot of times they will. And that could put you, you know, in a much better position. That could really help, you know, you accomplish the things that you kind of want to accomplish. I mean, you know, I think we all have dealt with kind of frustrations, you know, having to deal with things that we didn't want to deal with, maybe a daily thing that you didn't want to kind of deal with. And it can be rough, but, you know, just keep focusing on other things. I mean, it depends what you want. You know, it definitely depends what you want. Some people are really happy with like a standard American life, you know, and all that type of stuff in the suburbs, and, you know, all that's just standard stuff. Other people want, you know, something different. But I think that, you know, I remember like whenever somebody like told me when I was younger, like everybody, you know, nobody wants to work a standard job. Nobody wants to work, you know, the 9 to 5, but you have to do it. Everybody's trying to do something too hard, but they, you know, I never really agreed with that, because most of the people, even in places like here, probably one of the wealthiest zip codes in the United States, I mean, or in the world for that matter, even most of them just want, I mean, they were maybe a little bit more towards white collar jobs, I would say. You know, some of them were more, I guess a lot of them were more ambitious, maybe going into business or whatever, but it's still the life they wanted. It still wasn't like that crazy of a, you know, of a thing overall. I would say they were more ambitious than the average person, obviously, but it wasn't, you know, most people are still in that. I mean, social media shows you more of a flashy life, they say, you know, with traveling and all this fun stuff. I don't know, partying. It depends. That's the other thing too. It depends what algorithm. It depends. They only give you stuff that you're generally been looking at and searching, you know. I mean, it depends what algorithm they're going to show you different stuff dependent on, you know, you may just, if you're typing in cats, you're just going to get videos of cats. I mean, it depends, you know, it ultimately depends, but I don't think, you know, I don't think it's that hard to really, for the average person to really get a lot of the things they want. I think if you could really tone in on the right frequency, if you could really tone in and stop focusing on the negative, stop focusing on the past, and do, like that book, do as much as you can do each day, take that action. That doesn't mean you have to, like, you know, kill yourself and work hard and do things you hate all day. It could be action towards things that you're more passionate about. And, you know, you look at, there's a lot of people that, you know, they succeed at one thing and then they quit that or tried something else after and were able to succeed at the next thing. You know, there's a lot of people that, you know, love them or hate them. You know, you look at like somebody like Donald Trump, for that matter, and try, you know, reality father's business to real estate to reality TV star, president of the United States. Looks like he's probably going to get back in, most likely. We'll see what happens. There's a few months before that, and that's a good example. Bruce Lipton's talked about Trump a bit. You know, it's a good example. Your conscience, maybe not the smartest conscience. You may not have the most intelligent conscious thoughts, but your subconscious, if that's really intact, if your subconscious is in the right, the right place, having the right thoughts in the subconscious, the stars will align. If you really can get on that frequency, if you can really focus on that, the things that you need will come to you. And what happens a lot of times that you got to realize, sometimes you'll be on that path and things will start coming to you, and then you'll stop. You'll think it's okay. I don't need to think. You'll go back into your old habits, your old pathways. And then what do you get? The old results. I think a lot of very wealthy people, maybe not all of them, but a lot of very wealthy people, if you took away everything from them, they probably would be able to get, maybe if you're a billionaire, you're not going to get $1 billion in a year, but they're able to get probably the same lifestyle that they had within a year or 2 years. Most of them, I would say. Sure, there's exceptions, but a lot of it is that mental, just the thoughts, the subconscious. I mean, you look at most people that inherit a lot of money blow it all. Most people that win large, copious amounts in the lottery blow it all. And vice versa, I feel like most very rich people that were already made it themselves are rich and blew it all, they get it back, you know what I mean? Or lost it in some way. It comes back for some reason. It's just that mental kind of thing. I may not be the best person, at explaining this, but I think too, the ability to kind of adapt. And I mean, there were things, you look at some of the things that a lot of people were, made a lot of money with when they really, were just an average person and got really big and successful. Their content was good and all that, but I feel like there were better people. Maybe just they had a certain creative aspect that nobody else was doing. It wasn't necessarily that they were the most talented or necessarily better than everybody else, but they were doing it differently. They had something that nobody was really doing. They discovered a different way to do it. And you don't necessarily need to be the biggest genius in the world to do that. They discovered a different thing. And then, like I said earlier, a lot of times, we think everything's been discovered because, all the technology, excuse me, all that, in the modern age. But there's a lot, we're probably going to look back at this in 20, 30 years, and it's going to look like we were, horse and buggy to a certain extent. It's going to be a lot more advanced. And I think that's ultimately, kind of a good thing at the end of the day. I guess too, it's kind of the other thing too. I mean, people talk about depression and happiness. The biggest thing I think with sadness or depression, try to pinpoint, why you're depressed. That's the biggest thing. You want to really do a bit of a self-examination. Maybe some meditation could definitely help, especially in this day and age, like I'm doing, just walk around, see nature, get outside, even if it's just once a week for a half hour. Ideally more than that though, but do a bit of a self-examination. What are the things making you depressed? And then try to visualize that thing being solved, that issue, being solved. That's the most kind of important thing. And then try to act like it's already solved. There's a lot of truth behind that. Definitely a lot of truth behind that. Sometimes some people, you talk about this stuff, some people think you're a little, some people compare it to talking about leprechauns. I forget what that even is. Is that the 4-leaf clover thing? I don't even know. But, I mean, look, there's a lot of smart people that have talked about it. There's a lot of good things there, I think. A lot of really good things there. I mean, it is cool to see different places. It is cool to experience different things. Sometimes, you think about it. You may be young now. You may be in pretty good health. That may not be, not to be negative, but those opportunities may not be like they were, that's why you got to try to do these things kind of earlier, and maybe, you know, watch or talk to people that already kind of accomplished it, so it'll kind of feel a little bit more natural to you. You know, that's the important thing to realize here, making it feel more natural. You know, it seems like everybody's probably experienced something in their lives that they were trying really, really hard to get, and they just couldn't get it. You know, it wasn't working out. Nothing was going right, you know, etc. And then what happened? They kind of laid off the gas a little bit, you know, kind of accepted, oh, it's okay if it doesn't happen, if they don't get it. And then what happens? They get it, you know. Maybe just that anxiety, that stress was gone, and then they were able to kind of get into that flow state. Maybe it was that, and then they were able to really get it. Or maybe when they stopped trying to get it, you know, this is what's interesting. I don't know if there's, it's going to sound a little out there, but well, not completely. But, you know, they stopped trying, and then when they stopped trying, they were maybe thinking about what it would be like more, because it was they weren't thinking about how they didn't have it. They were thinking more, this is what I want to say. Not having something, not wanting something is the same as having it in terms of how you feel. So if you don't want something, you feel like you may feel, you know, it's like already having it in terms of how you feel, and then it comes to you. Now, how do you kind of do this? I mean, there's certain like experiments where people would write, you know, you visualize every night climbing a ladder. This is Neville Goddard. Visualize every night climbing a ladder, and then you would write down everywhere, I will not climb a ladder, and you try not to climb a ladder. What would end up happening? They'd end up climbing the ladder. I mean, people did that with $1 million. Obviously, there's going to be skeptics. Obviously, there's going to be people thinking that this is, you know, ridiculous. But I think there's something there, because everybody, I'm sure you're listening to this now and you're thinking, oh yeah, there was that time I really wanted something, and then I stopped. You know, I just stopped trying for it because I was like, whatever. You know, it's all right if I don't get it. And then all of a sudden, in maybe a very unexpected way, it just comes to you. You know, it just comes to you. Dr. Joe Dispenza has talked about this, you know, through meditation and through becoming no one, no thing, you know. And it's kind of a self-examination, and positive visualization just comes to you, and you kind of let go. You don't want it because you already have it, because, you know, time is kind of an illusion too, you know. And I'm not the best person at explaining, you know, something like that. Definitely not. But, you know, people talk about quantum physics. I think that's, you know, kind of the new thing here, like the new thing that'll continue to kind of be talked about. And I think, you know, we could kind of get into more of those realms and find more of those things through meditation, number one, positive thinking, you know, getting into different frequencies, different areas, even listening to frequencies to a certain extent. And I think the most important thing, not necessarily wanting, not necessarily, you know, just accepting that you already have the things you want, let's say. You know, it may be hard to do that, because especially if it's something that you really, really want, something that you really, really need, it may not be the easiest thing to do that. But kind of if you let go and say, you know, maybe you're sad or whatever, maybe you're suffering from depression, you know, you say, I'm depressed, but it's okay. I don't care. That was in Eckhart Tolle's book, A New Earth, I think. You know, maybe I'm sick, I don't feel that great today, but that's okay. Maybe I'm in pain, but that's okay. And you still obviously want to get better, but you kind of act and feel like you already are better, you know. And then if you do think in the past, think about how good it felt when you accomplished something. Think about those feelings, and that'll get you there, you know. I think there's that big, you know, power of placebo too. I think that, you know, they've done experiments where you tell somebody who's, you know, and I mean, this isn't right all the time. I'm not, you know, don't take everything I say completely literally here, but, you know, they tell somebody who's really sick or whatever, they screw up results or whatever, they tell somebody who's supposed to die in 6 months or supposed to die in a month that they're fine, and they tell somebody else who is fine that they're supposed to die in a month. You know, what ends up happening some of the time, I think there's been I could be wrong in this, but I think there's been documented cases where the person that's completely fine ends up dying, and the person that's sick, has cancer, or whatever else, you know, whatever it is, they end up living, and they're, there's that, they just tell you, okay, you're fine, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's all in your head. And then it's that mind body kind of connection there. I'm not saying this is the easiest stuff to do. I don't even know if this is, I don't want to be giving nobody, medical advice or nothing, or any type of advice for them, and financial advice, any type of advice. It's just anecdotal stuff that, I like to think about when I take these walks, when I, explore these places or whatever. But yeah, it's definitely important, because I think, you kind of get, especially with all media always in front of you, short form content and all that, you're kind of just sucked into all of this. You're sucked into constant stimulation and all that. And that's not how earlier humans were. That's not really how earlier humans were. And then you look at, how unhealthy people are, obesity and all that. I mean, I think it has a lot to do with the technology. Let's be real. I think it probably has a lot to do with that. I mean, seed oils and all that, the food's definitely not as healthy as it used to be, but I mean, it's only one of the factors here. I mean, there's a lot of different things in play. And I think I want to kind of conclude this, been going on a half hour already. I want to kind of conclude this, by saying, look, go after the things you really want, as long as you're not hurting nobody else or not hurting yourself, go after the things you really want, and don't really care too much about what people think. I mean, nobody knows the situation really as well as you do. And if you're going to take advice from anybody, take advice from somebody who at least accomplished the thing you want to accomplish. Don't be taking advice from somebody who knows nothing about what you're trying to do. That's one of the most important things I've learned in my life. And really, at the end of the day, it may only be you who really knows the situation. I mean, everything could be unique to you. So that's what I'm going to end you guys with. Hope you guys enjoyed the vlog. Really appreciate you guys. Always appreciate you guys smashing the like button, subscribing to the channel. All right, guys, have a good one. Goodbye.